Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Kistler O'Brien Podcast. I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, as we are here for an all-new episode of the KOB Podcast. As a reminder, you can check out all of our previous episodes wherever you get your podcasts. We have our video version on our YouTube channel. You can search us there, Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection. But we're also on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your favorite podcasts from on your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us there. Search us, Kistler O'Brien. Today, we like to welcome in a member of the Team KOB here at Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, Ron Ford, to the podcast. Ron, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time and joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you.
Ron is the shop manager here at Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection. We'll dive into that. But he also is the president of PAFED, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Ron, so you've been in the industry for a while now, and with KOB for several years. Can you just kind of paint us that picture of what your professional background's been like, what you've been doing at Kistler O'Brien, and kind of what the shop, kind of all that is? We'll dive into that a little bit, but more about, kind of what got you here and why, fire and life safety.
Okay. I started in 1981 as a volunteer fireman in Bethlehem Township. So I have a fire service background. One day in 1996, I seen a quarter-page ad in the newspaper for Kistler O'Brien. And I thought to myself, I'm doing firefighting for free. Why don't I get paid to do fire service?
Yeah.
So I thought it was a fit for me. I applied and became a service technician. I excelled through that. I started off as kitchen systems and portables, went into fire training, off-roads. Me and another guy from Philadelphia did all the off-roads. Went into a little bit other projects. I got certified in 1998 through PAFED. I was the first one to have a decal on their van, the PAFED certified emblem. Later on, a fun fact is I was the first employee with his name on the van.
Okay.
So I had my name in the PAFED emblem about 98, 99. After that, they asked me to come into the office and work the shop, and been here ever since.
Very cool. And you mentioned, you were in the fire service doing volunteer work. You're
Yes.
still doing that to this day, involved in your local fire company. So
Yes.
kind of paint us a little bit about that story as well, kind of how you've been involved with them for all these years.
It's something I got into in high school. My friends were all firemen. They talked me into joining. So we basically, we came up through the 80s. The fire service in the 80s was a little bit different than it is today. But being with a busy company, running lots of calls, we also provide ALS.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good time.
And now you're still doing it here to this day. So
Yes.
now, as the shop manager at KOB, as you mentioned, had a lot of field experience, and now they asked you to come into the shop
Yes.
and manage that. What does that entail? So if someone says, what does the shop do at Kistler O'Brien, what would you say?
I would say a short story. About 20 years ago, our former president, Eric Blosser, took a trip to Wisconsin. There was a company out there that was doing some sort of swap program. Mm-hmm. He brought it back here. We had meetings, said we want to be in the swaps. So about 20 years ago, we created the swap program here at Kistler O'Brien. I think it was a milestone in our history, because not only did it do one visit for the customer, instead of, when I was a technician, you would run out, you would pull their maintenance, put loaners in, bring it back here, get it done, take it back out. So it would be 2 or 3 visits for the customer. The swap program creates a thing where the guy already has his designated swaps on his truck. He can do it, get the customer back in service in a short amount of time, and it saves us from doing multiple trips.
Right, absolutely, and less time that it disrupts the customer's business,
Yes.
et cetera.
Yep.
So they're able to kind of keep their operations moving.
That's the main part of the shop keeping us busy, is the swap program. We also now have 3 branches that we do, so we have 3 warehouses we stock. That's the majority. We also do clean agents, We do CO2, clean agents, EP, any type of emergencies. The shop also entails supplying labor for the company, whether it's emergency laborers, drivers, deliveries, that sort of stuff. If we have emergencies here at KOB, the shop will take care of that. I am also designated as the deputy director for this building for emergencies. So if there's a fire or emergency type thing, I will oversee the emergency aspect with the fire department and everybody involved. So there's other things. Eric, about 15 years ago, tasked me with a parking lot with snow. So for 15 years, I've been doing snow. One of the goals was to get the lot cleared so it's safe for our employees, so we have less slips and falls. Plus, cleaning the vans off so that they get a chance to melt and stuff. So when the technicians come in after the snowstorm, their vans, they don't have to spend half an hour and a half trying to demelt them and get
prep
them ready.
Their vehicle. They
can
ready
get
for
back
them.
out on the road. So that's some of the stuff that the shop does.
So a lot of behind the scenes things the shop makes happen that folks see on the front lines of our techs out in the field, well-stocked vehicles ready to go on site. That starts, early hours the day before, getting them ready. So it's really the upstream stuff that the shop works on, and things keeping the operations moving. So another component of the shop is the walk-in service that we have for our extinguishers here. And this is a unique thing that we often don't talk about at KOB, because we say we're a commercial fire protection company, and a lot of the walk-in service is the small mom and pop business or office buildings that have just one or two extinguishers. No need to send a technician out there for just two. It's more economical for them to bring to us. No appointment needed to just come in and get that done here in Bethlehem. They can also get it done at their other two locations in Paoli or Reading, Pennsylvania. But also, that's the avenue for any residential customers who have their extinguishers that they want to get serviced for the new year, or if they need any other services done to it or inspections, is to come in through our walk-in service. So kind of give me a little bit more about that, and what's that process like for a customer that maybe has some extinguishers in their garage around their house that they want to, bring into us?
What they would do is bring them in. Me or one of my technicians would take a look at it, explain exactly what it is, whether their inspections are obsolete, whether they need hydro or 6-year. We explain that all to the customer up front. We tell them exactly what his choices are, and normally it's 5 to 10 minutes and they're in and out. Most of our walk-in customers really like the walk-in service. They've been coming here for years. We do get a lot of new ones. We get some factories, some police departments, some fire departments. As they use them, they'll bring them in, swap them out, and get that car back immediately. So it's time saving for them.
Anybody that is interested in those shop operations, walk-in service, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30, you can stop into our building. As Ron said, one of his team members or even himself will take care of you there, and you can bring in, no appointment needed, just a very few minute wait. We have a waiting area, and then they'll even bring it out to your car for you. That's the best customer experience we have here at KOB. So Ron, let's talk a little bit about your other role in the fire and life safety industry, a newer role for you, and that is the president of PAFED. So what motivated you to take that top role, and then what has it been like so far as the president of that organization?
Well, PAFED, I've been involved since 2012. Mike O'Brien went to Eric and said, I'd like to bring Ron into PAFED. So I was a volunteer for 3 years. 2015, I filled in for a board member that had left the industry, so I became on the board in 2015. I do term limit out in September, but our president, our past president, Adam, was a little bit tired. He's been doing it for 3 years. He needed a break. His business was getting busy. He came to me and said, you would be the best guy to do it. So I decided that I would spend my last year in PAFED as president and trying to work on some stuff. We took over the Pennsylvania Burglar and Fire Alarm Association in August. So I've been trying to work on that to get that intermixed. To bring both organizations, because we're two different organizations, but now we're all under one roof. Kind of difficult at times. We had some issues with our management company, which I had to switch to a new one, and we've been working on that full time, trying to get everything switched over, and so it's kind of delaying me in some of that. But I found a new association manager that is from the alarm side, has worked in New York on different associations, was president in some. I think he'll be a good fit for us. And once we get all this other stuff taken care of, I think he'll be able to bring us all together.
Sure. So you've kind of been dealt with a lot of the bigger challenges and potholes in your short tenure so far.
Yep.
So what is the future for the organization? What goals do you have? Everything else gets into place. You got the right manager for the association, the management company settled in.
Yep.
What is the vision you have for the organization, or at least that you would like to set them on that path, knowing that your term limit's coming up, that you want to set them up for future success?
I think right now our goal is the 24 conference, which is in Valley Forge, PA this year in September. After that, we're going to be working on, like I said, combining the two organizations together, making it friendly for both sides to use our site. I think that's a big challenge, learning the alarm side and the burglar security side versus just, the standard products type
Basic
side.
fire,
Yeah. So that's my goal, is to try and make it one big group and get it set up. We've already got the cornerstone set up in our association manager, and I think down the road, once some of this other stuff lets up, we'll be able to concentrate on that more heavily.
Sure. So if anybody that's watching or listening wants to learn more about the organization, where can they find PAFED? What's your website?
PAFED.com. They can go under there. Right now, it's in transition of switching association managers.
Sure.
But we also put out a newsletter every quarter. They can go on there and search that, and that has contact names and numbers. And we're open to any and all questions.
They can obviously reach out to you as well in
Yes.
those avenues. So that's PAFED. We talked a little bit about Kistler O'Brien as well. So let's circle back to KOB here, Ron.
Sure.
You told me your story, and it all started with years that were before the year 2000, which means you've been at KOB for quite some time, right? You've been growing up.
28 years.
Right. You've been growing in the organization. Something I ask a lot of our guests on this podcast who are current employees of Kistler O'Brien is, what would you tell others about what it is like working for KOB, whether they're currently in the fire protection industry or they're maybe thinking about getting into it, like yourself, who was, I'm a volunteer, and now I'm like, hey, I can make this my full-time job. What would you tell people? What's it like working for Kistler O'Brien?
I think it's a great place to work. I wouldn't be here for 28 years if I didn't. The people make KOB. We have a great group of people here, good leaders. There's go-getters. There's all sorts of people here, but people are the main one. It's. I know they don't like to say family, but it sort of feels like a family, and KOB treats you like a family. And I only think with Encore being a partnership, that's going to get even better. I did my studies with Encore. I know some of the Jersey guys that have been Encore members for a few years. I'm really convinced that this is going to be a good outcome and a bright future for us.
Certainly, and I think everyone feels the same way, and we had Tom and Jeremy O'Connor of Encore Fire Protection on an earlier episode of the podcast. You guys can check that out as well. Ron, well, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate the insight, and I'm sure the shop is busy and wanting you to get back there to help with the operations. But thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of the podcast as well. Again, make sure you check any previous episode out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection.